Yasodanandana Brajajana Ranjana Yasodanandana Brajajana Ranjana Yamuna Chihara Vanachari Yamuna Chihara Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram Ram Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Rama Hare Hare. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Rama Hare Hare. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Ram Hare Hare. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. So read from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 6, Chapter 5, Narada Muni, cursed by Prajapati Daksa, and text 12. Eka eve Vishvarastaturyo Eka eve Vishvarastaturyo Bhagavan Svashraya Paraha Bhagavan Svashraya Paraha Tamadrishva Bhavam Pumsa Tamadrishva Bhavam Pumsaha Kim Asat Karmabir Bhavet Kim Asat Karmabir Bhavet Eka Eveshvarasturyo Bhagavan Svashvaraya Paraha Tamadrishva Bhavam Pumsaha Kim asat karma bir bhavet. Eka eveshvarasturyo. Bhagavan Shashvaraya Bhagavan Svashvaraya Paraha Tamadrishva Bhavam Pumsaha Kimasat Kamabir Bhavat Eva Evishvarasturyo Shvash Bhagavan Svashraya Paraha Tamadrishva Bhavam Pumsaha Kimasat Karmabir Bhavat Eka Eveshvarasturyo Bhagavan Svashvara Paraha Kamadrishva Bhavam Pumsa Kimasat Karmabir Bhavat Eka Eveshvarasturyo Bhagavan Svashvara Paraha Kamadrishva Bhavam Pumsa Kimasat Karmabir Bhavat Ishvasturyo Bhagavan Svashvara Paraha Tamadrishva Bhavam Pumsa Kimasat Karmabir Bhavat Ekaha one Eva indeed Ishvaraha Supreme Controller Turiyaha the fourth transcendental category Bhagavan the Supreme Personality of Godhead Ashrayaha independent being his own shelter Paraha beyond this material creation Tam him Adrishtva not seeing Abhavam who is not born or created Pungshaha of a man Kim what benefit Asat karma bihi with temporary fruitive activities Bhavat there can be translation. Narada Muni had said that there is a kingdom where there is only one male. The Haryashvas realized the purport of this statement. The only enjoyer is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who observes everything, everywhere. He is full of 6 opulences and fully independent of everyone. He is never subject to the 3 modes of material nature, for he is always transcendental to this material creation. The members of human society do not understand him, Supreme, through their advancement in knowledge and activities, but simply work very hard like cats and dogs all day and night for temporary happiness. What will be the benefit of their activities? In response, please, Narada Muni had said that there is a kingdom where there is only one male. Haryashvas realize the purport of this statement. The only enjoyer is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who observes everything everywhere. He is full of 6 opulences and fully independent of everyone else. He is never subject to the three modes of material nature, for he is always transcendental to this material creation. The members of human society do not understand him. And specifically, the cosmic manifestation has only one proprietor or enjoyer, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is beyond this material manifestation. The Lord has therefore been described as Turiya, existing in the fourth platform. He has also been described as Abhava. The word Bhava, which means takes birth, comes from the word Bhu, to be. As stated in Bhagavad Gita 8:19, Bhutva Praliyate. Living entities in the material world must be repeatedly born and destroyed. The Supreme Personality of God, however, is neither Bhutva nor Praliyate. He is eternal. In other words, he is not obliged to take birth like a human being, like human beings or animals, which repeatedly take birth and die because of ignorance of the soul. The Supreme Personality of Godhead is not subject he's trying to delegate. Is that the word? He's trying to delegate. Delegate means I don't do it all myself, but I delegate so others can actually take the burden. So, he's got to create living entities to populate the whole universe. And this comes from Garbhodakashaya Vishnu. Garbhodakashaya Vishnu is giving the first creation, and that's all the planetary systems. Then he enters into them through his partial expansion called Kshirodakashaya Vishnu, which, supports everything. And then from him is born the first created being, Aja. He's called unborn because he's not born like us. He's born straight from the body of Mahavishnu. And this is Lord Brahma. And then Lord Brahma has a burden. Now he has to, create all the living entities. And so from his body comes Swayambhuva Manu and Satarupa. They are the progenitors. Read about that in the earlier cantos, Canto 3. And from Swayambhuva Manu and Satarupa, other living entities take birth, like Kardama Muni, not Kardama Muni, but what's Kardama Muni's wife? Devahuti, Akuti, Prasuti. And they marry other sages from other Prajapatis, and it all just explodes. Not just in human life, but in animal species as well. What's that verse? Can't remember. But anyway, so this is the situation that when we have responsibility, we feel some, is it discomfort? Yeah, it's discomfort, isn't it? We just want to take rest all day. Eat all day. We just want to do all the easy things. So that's a natural. Why? Why is that? Because we're in the atmosphere of ignorance. And here it's talking about that. The actual atmosphere of ignorance is always, there's two things. What's those two things? It's always covering us, It's covering us so that we don't know, we can't orientate ourselves properly. We start relating to things around us. This is called Avaranatmika Shakti. And then Prakshepatmika Shakti. So that's Maya, Maya's illusion, right? And Prakshepatmika Shakti is always pushing us about. When somebody's always pushing you about, it's like, it's not very good, is it, like in Kirtan, if somebody's out of sync with everybody else. Have you heard that? You know what I mean? It's like really annoying. So, we're being pushed about like that. And this is the three modes of nature, the three modes of nature. We think we're free from the three modes of nature. I think, I think I'll do that. I've made a decision, right? But we have to understand that there's nowhere in creation where the three modes of nature are not existent. And therefore, it's even in the mind, in the intelligence, in everything the three modes of nature are working. So what's actually happening, we've created so many impressions from previous births and so many desires that, even now the material energy is preparing another body if we're actually trying to enjoy. Okay, you want to enjoy that way. And then the mind and intelligence are also that preparation which we forget. It's not so bad to forget we're not the body. Not so difficult, at least theoretically. But to actually come to this, I'm not the mind, I'm beyond the mind. And these things are working. So the body's working automatically. And the whole point of Krishna consciousness is to use that in a positive way. So, we got off the point a little bit. We'll talk about Daksha. Daksha felt some discomfort, Prakshepatmika, And so then he thought, I've got these, he begot, I think it was 1,000, was it 1,000 or 10,000? Anyway, 1,000, I think, first. Haryashvas, they call them Haryashvas. So they're all obedient sons. He's a Prajapati. He has knowledge. He has some Krishna consciousness. So they were pretty elevated living entities. And he wanted them to start, producing, get married and produce other living entities and start taking care of things. And so first thing, he sent them to the forest. So that's the first thing, isn't it? What did Lord Brahma hear from Lord Vishnu? Tapa. That's the first thing he heard, tapa. So the first thing is there has to be some tapa. It don't come easy. You heard that record? It doesn't come easy. So he sent them to the forest and to perform tapasya. But fortunately for them, but unfortunately for Daksha, they met Narada Muni. And, he's a transcendental he's a transcendental sage, but he's always seemingly stirring things up. He's always in a situation creating some situation which doesn't seem so good. And so to Daksha, he didn't know at the time, but he was saying, where are you going? I said, well, our father sent us to the forest. What for? Perform austerities. What for? So we can beget offspring. He says, why do you want to do that? So he created some doubt. So, well, that's what you're doing, it. So then he said, well, there's another way, Do you know what married life entails? And he started to go through it and they were like, them jaw dropped. And they think, well, can you give us an alternative? Why do you remain brahmachari? What's that? You don't get married. You chant Hare Krishna. And, you take prasadam. You do a bit of service, do a bit of reading. That sounds all right, that. And so that's what happened. He got them to renounce. That's the only thing we can renounce, you know that? Well, you can renounce other things, but, when we're in a spiritual society, we're supposed to be like, following orders. It's coming down in disciplic succession. And, it's coming down anyway. It's coming from, ultimately from Lord Krishna if we're in line. And what we're going to say now? We were talking about, they got the order. And I said, the only order we don't have to follow, what's that? What? Has to get married. We don't have to get married. But Daksha didn't tell them that. He wouldn't tell them that, because he's got to, bit of diplomacy. If I tell them that, that'll be the curtains to this particular adventure. So he told them, about your duties and about, Varnashram system, and you work your way through it, and, so like that. But Narada Muni, he went straight in with the devotional service, started telling him about the process. And so they became free from bewilderment. They thought, what's the point, going through all that? Better if we just, become Krishna conscious, then we can do so much. But when Daksha got to know, he wasn't happy at all. And he was a little bit under the modes, to do that service, you have to be a little bit in the mode of passion. And so he was upset. Mode of passion means, what does it mean? It means in the beginning, we're all enthusiastic. And then because things don't start going a little bit off the track, we might get agitated. So he got really agitated and he cursed Narada Muni. But then later on, when he thought Narada Muni was away, we'll hear later how he created some other offspring. They were called, anybody know? Remember? Savalashvas. I think there were more of them. There were 10. He created more just in case, so that there'd be more chance of him getting back past Narada Muni, I think. And so then, Narada Muni did the same thing. We'll hear about that later. How he knew he couldn't. They'd been warned. When you've been warned, you actually got all the answers. But then he started saying, what's the duty of a younger brother? To follow the older brother. He says, what did your older brothers do? They're brahmachari. He said, what should you do? And that was it. He foiled him again. So Daksha really, he got to. So that's what happens a little bit later. But here we've got a few points. What are the points? What does that mean when we say, we're supposed to be selfless servants, right? But why is that the only, only one that we can, only order that we can actually definitely not do? Why would you say? Just a little bit of logic, that's all. It's just, I'm not saying it's the only one. There's so many circumstances and different situations, different people, that Shastra's giving us a general understanding, but sometimes we need expert devotees to apply the philosophy for time, place, and circumstance. But this is something which is well known, that we don't have to take the renounce. We don't have to get into the Grihastha life. And one thing is that which charity begins at home, isn't it? Is it? What do they say when you get on an aeroplane? They start, stretching the thing. And have you seen that? A single drop down and you stretch it, put it on but put it on who first? Put it on the kids, right? Why? They've got a young. They're only young. They can live longer than us. You can't help someone else if you're in a position to help them. So put it on yourself, then be halfway through putting it on the kid, and you thought, you'll go unconscious, and everybody's finished. So yeah, they say, so that's same in spiritual life. Spiritual life means that I have to become capable of becoming a pure, not pure devotee, maybe straight away, pure motives, but I have to become experienced and know how to actually deal with the material energy, because we don't in the beginning. And without association, we're not going to be able to do that. We need that expert guidance on people, on devotees who've gone through that particular sphere. So first thing is we have to protect ourselves. And we just mentioned one thing there, that was association of devotees, right? The other one we know, we're chanting the holy name. But another one is what? Reading Srimad Bhagavatam. If we read Srimad Bhagavatam regularly, everything becomes very clear. Krishna's in the Bhagavatam. You know that? He says, what's that? Krishna svadama pagate jnana janidvisaha kalu nasta drisham esha purana unadoditaha. In the beginning of the Srimad Bhagavatam, in the first canto, in the first chapter, the sages ask 6 questions. And one of the questions is where has religion gone now that Krishna will leave this world? Because they understood that. And what was the answer? It was answered later in the 3rd chapter. And it says, Krishna is Svadama Pagade. Now that Krishna's left this world, well, it says, where will we get light? We're in the age of darkness. The light of Krishna has left this world. We've read that, haven't we? Krishna Surya Sama Maya Haya Andikara. Where there's Krishna, then there's no darkness. Where there's Krishna, there's no ignorance. Just like where there's sun, there's no darkness. But Krishna's not here. It said Krishna is in the Srimad Bhagavatam. In the pages. We'll get light from this Purana. So, reading Prabhupada's books is... Did you know that there's an incentive, not an incentive, what they say when you start pushing something? What's the word? Motivation. That's not the word I'm looking for. Incentive, is it? That's right, it's an incentive. There's an incentive in ISKCON coming from the GBC. There's been a group sanctioned to push the reading of Srila Prabhupada's books because they're realizing that devotees are not reading them. They're not reading them. When I was in Mayapur about 5 or 6 years ago. I haven't been to India for a while, actually. And they started doing it then. And, they had a, what is it? When you give out, you fill in the details and they can tell from that what the situation is. And what? What was that? A logbook. Maybe, not a logbook. Anyway, they sent out a sheet of paper, with questions and answers. A questionnaire, that's it. They sent out this questionnaire. And, how many times you read Prabhupada's books, like this, so many different, which books do you read? And, a lot of them it was just blank. So, my God, there's no wonder people are actually, there's so much, disagreement and everything. And so they're really pushing that read Prabhupada's books. And it's like a breath of fresh air. Have anybody had that feeling? You're like into the modes a little bit, and it's like it's a struggle. And then you just read a couple of pages from Srimad Bhagavatam. It's like, oh, boy, I needed that. I was once on Sankirtan in it was Liverpool, and it's the first time I've been out on Sankirtan on my own. I usually were in pairs, but we used to, we used to distribute paintings then. You remember the paintings? They were hard, and it's like you were in a daughter, you were in plain clothes. You got no real. And I thought, I'm not really into this, So I rang Sri Maharaj, he were in charge of Sankirtan, he were in charge of the UK at the time. I said, Maharaj, I'm on my honey. I don't feel very inspired. Guess what he said? Read, Abhay, read. His voice, read, Abhay, read. I thought, okay, and that's all he said. And so I thought, okay, I sat down and read for about an hour, and I felt like completely different. I felt protected, enthusiastic, and so a stitch in time saves 9. It's not a waste of time. All this, this morning program is like giving us so much energy. You can't believe it. If you don't believe me, just go and no, don't do this. Just live outside for a few weeks or a few months, on your own. It's a big difference. So, but especially, what's the morning program for? It's to get us jacked up so we're ready for hearing, hearing Srimad Bhagavatam. And then it goes in and it stays. Anyway, this is one point I thought from this, is that first of all, look after yourselves. We have to, and then we can actually look after others. Material world. If I'd say one word for material world, what would you say would hit the nail on the head and explain everything? One sloka maybe, if you want to put it. But there's one word which really, there's a few words, but this is a really good word. Suffering. Oh, that's a good one. Any more? And what? So, yeah, that's the same thing, isn't it? We have to tolerate the suffering. But these are good. These are good. I'll write these down. Anybody else? Entanglement. Okay. Anchoring and lamenting. Illusion. What about Maya? No, it's not Maya. It's not what I was thinking of competition. That's the biggest problem we have, isn't it? First sin, what's the first sin? You know, don't you? What's the biggest sin? Yeah? Envy. Yeah, but there'll be no envy if we actually get this right. I mean, if we think with the body. That's the biggest thing. If we think with the body, we'll do everything wrong. And that's what happens is that, false ego is the first thing that comes. It starts to, we lose our identity. Avanaratmika Maya, false ego. Because false ego is one of the first things that's created in the material world. It comes from the mode of which? Ignorance. Mode of ignorance. So the false ego means that we think in terms of this body, then what do we see? We see everything as separate. Me and him and me, I and mine, us and them. Is it? And so it's not like that, is it? They don't think like that in the spiritual world. Not on the same platform anyway. They think it's Krishna's. And so as soon as we see, we don't see Krishna in the equation, then we start competition. And it starts right, when does it start, this competition? How far back can you go? When does it really start? This is my version anyway. When you're at school, first of all, they give you a pencil, don't they? They'll give you some writing paper. He probably won't be on that platform. He'll start doing rhymes, nursery rhymes, isn't it? And then after a while, when you've got a little bit older, you start, learning how to write. And then, once you can write, you can start doing things. What at this point, what do they tell you not to do? They tell you a few things, actually. Don't copy. Is that right? Don't copy. Why? We're all after the same goal, aren't we? No. You've got to beat him. That's what they mean. And so straight away, this means that, in a Bhagavatam class, is there anybody, did they ever say don't copy, The whole point is to copy, isn't it? That's why we're together. Let's see if I can copy what he's doing and what he's saying. Because the goal's the same. So as soon as the goal's not the same, then there's problems. That's so material world means competition. And this is one thing that's mentioned here, right at the beginning of the purport. Narada Muni had mentioned a kingdom where there is only one king with no competitor. So, once we establish the goal of Krishna in our hearts, then we'll become, it's amazing, isn't it? When we actually think on that part, we feel so much relief. Have you noticed? You don't compete. As soon as you start competing, what's it? There's a knot in the heart, isn't there? Dry throat. No. Everything's up to Krishna. This is all a devotee has to do. See Krishna in the equation. We'll come to that later. Turiya means not material. But does it mean not material? It says the fourth dimension. What do you think? Is it material or spiritual, this Turiya? It's spiritual. There's, the three dimensions, three modes of nature. It's all, everything in this world is controlled by the modes of nature. Only when we actually transcend by spiritual activity. So he's talking about Turiya, and Krishna and the Supreme Lord's in that dimension, beyond the modes of material nature. Ishvara Parama Krishna, Satchit Ananda Vigraha, Anadir Adi Govindam Sarva Karna Karnam. So then another word mentioned, Abhava. What does Abhava mean? Can anybody remember from the purport? Unborn. Bhava means birth, unborn. So there's one nice verse in Srimad Bhagavatam by Queen Kunti. She says, Janma karma chivishvatma, have you heard this? Ajaksha kodra atmanaha, tiriyan rishishu yadishu tad adyanta vidambanam. Verily, it is bewildering, O soul of the universe, how you work, but you're inactive. How you take birth, but you're unborn, and the life force of everything else. What was the last one? And another one, I can't remember, but these are contradictions. So Bhagavat Paradiya, Bhagavat Stani. We can make some spiritual progress anyway, like this, if we don't have a devotees association. Did you know that? Is that a true statement? I'm making you work. We come to what about karma yoga? We may not karma yoga doesn't mean that we give it to Krishna. We don't even know Krishna. We give up the results of work. Jnana yoga. We know that we're not the body, but we don't know Krishna. We can actually work on the spiritual platform. Ashtanga yoga. We're not sure. Am I the super soul? Is that the super soul different from me? And sometimes they actually take to an impersonal goal. So it's only when we actually, so we can make some, but it's not real advancement, is it? It's getting us onto a higher platform, that's all, which is not really the sat platform. It's only when we get the association of a devotee that we can understand Krishna. That's what it says here. That Queen Kunti is playing that, people cannot understand you. But Bhagavat Paradiya, Bhagavat Stani, when we take shelter of somebody who's fixed in Srimad Bhagavatam and can explain it to us, then we can become fixed. And then we can understand how Krishna is abhava and bhava. How is he abhava and bhava? Bhava means he takes birth. Abhava means he doesn't take birth. And it says here he doesn't take birth. But does he take birth from the womb of Devaki? Does Lord Chaitanya take birth from Sachi Devi? Or the ocean? So it's come from the ocean? No, we know it's not come from the ocean. So similarly, Krishna takes, but also in Bhagavatam, Prabhupada makes a statement. He says, but there's nothing to stop Krishna. There's nothing to stop Krishna taking birth like us. And sometimes he does. I think it was Devahuti and Kapila. So he can do both. Krishna's beyond any, logic. So I'm just trying to break this down into something some points that's being made in the purport. So avaginanti mammuda manasim tanam ashrita parambhavam ajanata ma bhutva maheshwaram. Fools and rascals, they actually don't take shelter of devotional service for the devotees. Therefore, they don't understand Krishna at all. And so, Narada Muni is making the point here. Narada Muni had said that there is a kingdom where there is only one male. And so, in the association of devotees, that's a statement which, you give that statement to somebody who's in material consciousness. He thinks so many things. But to understand it properly, we can understand it through devotees. Okay, we can stop there. Anybody got any questions or comments?
Thank you very much. You see the last point about fools and rascals deride him when he descends in his human form, Krishna saying. What about people who are just in ignorance, they don't know? Is this sort of definition of a fool, like a rascal and a fool, is that still used for people who just are unaware?
You want to know who to call a rascal here? Yeah, I mean, everybody's a fool and rascal in this material world just for being here. From that point of view, But it's relative. Some are actually open. Some are actually not so open. So if we remain not so open, we remain a fool and a rascal. But if we're open, then at least we can actually explain to that person something which will help them to, understand how to deal with their situation and act in an appropriate way. Even amongst devotees, we can be foolish, Sometimes maybe a little bit of rascaldom. You know what I mean? But we're on the path. That's the point. And Krishna, he's very kind. He always takes the positive side. He always sees the good we're doing, and he tries to actually work on that. It may sometimes mean that there's some punishment in order to actually correct us, but it's all for the same purpose, to try and fan the spark, try and keep us, in the process. So, can you imagine how tolerant he is? He doesn't have to be tolerant, does he? But he is. He's so tolerant. So tolerant that he remains in the heart of every single living entity in this material world eternally. And remains in every atom of this material creation just to keep it, putting his energy into it. Bhagavad Gita said, with a simple spark of my splendor, I pervade and support this whole manifestation. So in other words, we can understand that people are actually foolish, but, we try to look for the spark. And whatever it takes to get that ignited, then we can try. Prabhupada didn't just preach like his godbrothers did or previous generations. He saw what was needed and then actually applied himself. And, instead of calling them fools and rascals, he actually praised them. He gave a class once and he was talking about you should go up to somebody and say, especially people who are successful in the material world, and praise them like anything. And then at the end, it should, now please forget all that you've learned. So that's the way we want to get people to that point where they open up, and then we can actually put something there. Okay. Okay, anything else before we close? Grantaraj? What's this? Was it closed? No, it weren't closed. Go on,
Just again on this point of fools and rascals, is the translation that fools and rascals, like mutas, it seems almost like what you call a child, who's been a little bit naughty, but they're not nothing any.
When you call it?
A child's being a little bit naughty or misbehaving. Oh, it's a little rascal. Like this. Is it that sort of mood there as well?
Is it that sort of mood?
Yeah, like, a child's not doing anything seriously wrong. It's just a rascal, a bit naughty.
Actually, Prabhupada, he used the word rascal, and it's a heavy word in India. In England, it's like a really light word. It's like nobody but an eyelid. But he says, in India, if you call somebody a rascal, they don't take it very easily. So, Prabhupada was actually being very, very to the point, because he set the bar for everybody else. Although he was soft and accommodating, he set a standard of devotional service which is very difficult for anybody to follow, but he somehow encouraged them to follow it. 4 regulatory principles, it's not something, anybody would really is so happy to be told it, I know when I started reading Science of Self-Realization, you know, I was like, wow, this is great. Oh, this is not so great, you know. And I kept putting it down, thinking, I can't do that. But it was just, you know, I got a taste. I thought, let me have another look. You know, maybe there's a way around this. So it's like that. So, you know, we have to put ourselves in their shoes. And then if we put ourselves in their shoes, we can be compassionate. And that's why it's good when devotees have experienced something in their lives, which helps them to understand how somebody else is suffering. Bhagavad Gita says that. But we don't know how much. Actually, there was one, what was it now? Forgiveness. I gave a talk on forgiveness many years ago here. And there was different quotes from different famous people in the world about the material understanding of forgiveness. And one person, he wrote, if one could understand the torment of another person, of every living entity in the world, or something like that, it would burn up, or it would melt all animosity towards that person. You know what I mean? If we could understand why a person's reacting like they are, it's due to so much suffering. And if we can actually perceive that, then we can feel compassionate. Okay, Yantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki, Srila Prabhupada ki. Gaura Premananda.